Several ancient traditions speak of specific energy centers, or chakras, within the human body. Could the posture of these megalithic pre-diluvian statues be pointing future civilizations to the importance of these sacred areas in the body?
When we consider the possibility that ancient civilizations, pre-diluvian civilizations, could have developed in a cyclic manner, and that there is a continuity of knowledge and information, tradition, that is carried from cycle to cycle. One of the key places that we begin to see some of these traditions is with the depictions of the people who lived during these times, the people themselves. How are they depicted? What are their body postures? What are they showing us about themselves and their relationship to the world? Easter Island is a fascinating example of this. As the excavations have revealed more to the statues in the Easter Island than were known to exist in the past, as the excavations have taken below ground level and shown that there are entire bodies that accompany the heads. It's the hand positions that are intriguing scholars. The way the hands are placed on the body, they're not simply at their sides, but they're showing a particular part of the body. And the question is, do we see that in other places? The answer is we do, and we see it in a very interesting way. In Peru, for example, there is the legend in Lake Titicaca of how the Peruvian people began. When a being from another world came to this world, and the being that came is named Tumi, T-U-M-I, and Tumi's hands are always placed also in front of the body, but a very particular part of the body on the heart chakra. Perhaps one of the most fascinating is with Göbekli Tepe, where we see the representations of the humans and their hands are placed on the solar plexus as well. So we have two cultures, hands placed precisely the same place. Well, when we begin looking at other cultures, what we find is that their hands are placed on other chakras as well. In Easter Island, they are lower energy centers or lower chakras. Peru, middle chakras. And when we look into Egypt, we begin seeing that the hands are placed over the solar plexus chakra. Each of these has very particular significance within the culture itself, with Peru being a very feminine, very heart-based culture, for example. In Easter Island, what we find is that it is that energy of survival and being able to transcend the elements and whatever hardships and challenges face the people that is derived from those lower energy centers, precisely where the hands are placed from the statues that are being excavated today. Is it possible that the Moai are sharing the same period of time or the same age when the hardships of the earth and the challenges that the people faced were so great that they had to draw upon this aspect of themselves just to survive?
We also have now the idea that the statues themselves with their hands pointing at the belly, these are found all the way throughout Polynesia. They're found in the Korean Peninsula, found in South America, and Göbekli Tepe. So, here's the connection. If the earliest carbon-14 dating of Göbekli Tepe is now at 10,200 BC, we have a problem, because the same image of the pillar with the hands clutching the belly is also found on Easter Island, and the debris on Easter Island is much older than 800 years. Now we begin to realize that whoever put the statues on Easter Island and carved the statues in Göbekli Tepe, they had to be borrowing from the same manual. They may have been ostensibly the same people, or at least the same groups of people belonging to the same academy. And not just that, but different academies around the world who are borrowing from exactly the same manual, and they're all following the same procedure. It opens up the whole story of humanity.
Could these monoliths connect with the ancient structures of Göbekli Tepe? And if so, does that mean they could have been carved over 12,000 years ago? An ancient carving has been found on the back of these heads. How does this connect the inhabitants of Easter Island to the Middle East, Turkey, or even Egypt?
In 1864, we find a Roman Catholic friar was exploring the villages in Easter Island. And what he noticed is in many of the homes of the Rapa Nui people, the native people of Easter Island, he would find various sticks or tablets that had these strange etchings on them. And as he looked at the etchings, he noticed that they were in the shape of humans or animals or other geometric forms. And when he asked the people what they are, they would say, oh, it's rongo rongo. And when we go into the Rapa Nui language, the language of the native Easter Islanders, we find that rongo rongo means to speak out or to cite. So it suggests that it's a form of language. But what does this language mean? Unfortunately, we don't know. We don't have enough examples of it. We don't have enough way of correlating it to other languages. So we can't quite translate what this language is. And even when we were to ask native Rapa Nui people, we get some mixed messages here. Some people seem to suggest that they know it, but they're not going to let outsiders know what these mean. And other people suggest, no, we don't know what this is all about. So unfortunately, the language of rongo rongo continues to be undeciphered. But what we find very interesting is in Pakistan, thousands of miles away, Mohenjo-daro has almost the exact same form of writing. So what does that suggest?
Rongo rongo is a mysterious script that is found on tablets, wooden tablets that were discovered at Easter Island and created by the Easter Islanders. And for a long time, nobody could decipher this script. It has these very strange figures, these humanoid figures with dots beside them, or bird-headed humans, or these circular images that made no sense to anybody. Then recently, Dr. Robert Schoch was investigating Easter Island, and his wife, Catherine Ulysses, made an important discovery. She looked at the rongo rongo script and said, wait a minute, this looks exactly like what Dr. Anthony Perrott from Texas is investigating with plasma forms. When solar storms occur, we see these very strange images that can form in the sky. Well, Catherine Ulysses looks at these images and compares it to the rongo rongo script and realizes they're virtually identical, and puts forward the hypothesis that what we could be looking at with the rongo rongo script are ancient records of what the Easter Islanders saw in the night sky or during this time of intense solar flare activity. The thing is, this solar flare activity is dated to around 10,000 BC. So what's happening here with the rongo rongo script is that they are repeating over and over these imagery, and they might have lost the original meaning. In other words, they didn't realize it referred to what they were seeing in the sky. However, it is a faithful reproduction of what one could have seen during a high plasma event as recorded in the ancient world. Investigators have been comparing the symbols that we see on the Moai with what we see at places like Göbekli Tepe and finding a very important correspondence. This is important because, once again, if the Easter Islanders are recording what they saw in a plasma event around 10,000 BC, this aligns with the time period in which Göbekli Tepe is constructed as well. So it's suggesting that both of these cultures are seeing the same thing in the sky and recording the same symbols.
What's interesting about rongo rongo is that they're like hieroglyphs, very similar to like Egyptian hieroglyphs, even though they're totally different. And all attempts to decipher them have actually been unsuccessful. But again, how did they get there? Who put them there? And what is the connection between rongo rongo and the Indus Valley?
One of the great enigmas of Easter Island is a written language. This is known to us as the rongo rongo language. Rongo rongo would seem to have been part of the culture of Easter Island, which involved the symbolism of the birdman. This would seem to have been very, very important, and we find this birdman imagery within the different pictographs of the rongo rongo language. The problem is that we can't decipher it, nor can the Easter Island peoples of today. But as early as 1936, it was realised that there was some similarity between the rongo rongo script and a similar script found in the Indus Valley of what is today Pakistan. And it was realised that there may well have been some kind of cross-contact between the Indus Valley civilization all the way out into the Pacific and Polynesia, all the way across to Easter Island. That would suggest that there was some kind of common source of this written language that links the Indus Valley culture with this lost script at Easter Island. So what is the link? I mean, that is the greatest mystery, because what it could suggest is that peoples coming all the way from what is today Pakistan and India actually went all the way out into the Pacific and reached as far as Easter Island.
Could these ancient civilizations be using these monuments to tell us something they collectively witnessed in the sky thousands of years ago? Were these massive statues depictions of the pre-diluvian gods during the time of the Mu civilization? What other clues around these megalithic marvels point to the interconnection of pre-diluvian civilizations?